Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast La Chaise Bleue, the podcast dedicated to the leader of the digital transformation. We're now live from the Hannover Messe, where the partner country is Canada for 2025. It's a pleasure for me to introduce you to Willem from CGI. So the stage is to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Cet épisode de La Chaise Bleue vous est fièrement présenté par GLM Conseil. Acolyte de la transformation dans votre entreprise à l'ère du numérique.
Thank you for all that took an effort to actually come and see my presentation today. Earlier did already 2 workshops, and this is a downsized version of it. CGI is the company, a Canadian company indeed, but I work for CGI Netherlands. I'm a director with the manufacturing unit, and within that unit we really cater to manufacturing companies. We see how can we automate and optimize your production systems, but how can we make them secure? And that's more important. I had the cybersecurity center of excellence for CGI with all of its experience and knowledge and reusable frameworks. Over the past 20 years, we actually are the hub within CGI globally. And we work with all our partners across the globe, all our colleagues across the globe, to engage with our manufacturing customers, critical infrastructure customers, and so on. I was just explaining this picture. I asked Copilot, can you paint me a really dystopic picture, something that really portrays a catastrophe? Because, and this is what it came up with. I thought it was pretty good. And I wanted to stress on the word catastrophe, on purpose, because of 2 reasons. One is that you need to think about the worst thing happening to you. If somebody asked me earlier today, so where do I start? Well, where are you most vulnerable? That is where we start. What is critical to you? What is critical to your business? What is your outside world look like? And what is creating the biggest risk for you? And then you are probably more at risk than you even realized before. And that's what this presentation is all about. Next slide. And it's not just us. This is very recent. This is the World Economic Forum also warning for a catastrophic cyber event. And the problem is that so many companies are underestimating this. And we really come and talk to customers and say, well, I'm not going to get hit, or it's not a priority this year, maybe next year, or I've already done something, and so what have you really done? But hardly anything. And actually the OT people really know how damaging this can be, but they're not usually the budget holder. And they need to still convince people upstairs to make the investment, and that's where the challenge is. So I'm on a mission, my team is on a mission to instill some fear in companies and make sure that you realize that you are more at risk than you realize and start doing something about it. And I want to talk about 3 different dimensions of how you are more at risk. One is that you're probably much more vulnerable than you realized that you were. Secondly, that you are probably much more of a target than you ever realized. And thirdly, then, that the consequences of an OT cybersecurity or an IT cybersecurity attack are probably much more consequential than you realized before. There we go. And then when you talk about this, you talk about what is the weakest link in your company. And when we talk about security, you need to talk about people, process, and technology. There are many companies that say, I bought a tool, so I'm safe. No, that's not enough. I have security policies and I've got them across my entire company. When I ask him, is it OT specific? Did you just replace the I with an O and said, I have an OT cybersecurity policy? It's not going to work. And then most importantly, what about your people? Are they aware? And typically, I lost the mic. No, it's there. Okay. The thing is that when you say people are the weakest link, it actually creates a bit of a okay, I'm the weakest link, then what should I care then? I'm weak anyway, and I can't resist. And that's the wrong approach, of course. the point is that it's the unawareness of your people that is creating the weakest link. And something about you can do about awareness. You can train them. You can simulate things. You can think of scenarios where you need to test and improvise to make sure that they change their behavior. And on the same note, it should not be too restrictive. Because if it becomes too restrictive, and especially if you were start translating your IT policies into OT, change your password every 30 days. It doesn't work in OT. And so you need to come up with creative solutions. You need to work with a partner that really understands the world of OT, that you're automating physical processes. You're not, doing something with information security. OT security is an entire different field, even if they still end in cybersecurity. And another vulnerability that exists that people are really underestimating is system software. IT, it's very common that we have push patches every month. Your laptop gets reset whether you like it or not, and it's fine. It doesn't work in OT. We know that, and so we don't do it. And why is my microphone? Okay, and that is a problem if you don't do it. You can argue that it's difficult, and it is. You may be 24/7 operations, and that makes it difficult to bring systems down to actually do patching. But not patching is like leaving your door unlocked. You used a similar analogy in the half hour before. Yeah. So and because legacy systems that you're using in your factories are going out of support at some point in time, they will be. And what are you going to do then? Yeah. So there's patching on the edge. There's virtual patching. There are strategies that you can think of. If you are not operating 24/7, you have maintenance windows. So use them. Don't deny it. Back in the days, 20 years ago, when you could only, enter any system because you were physically in the factory, that's no longer true. Everything is getting connected, and the IT is asking for data from the shop floor, remote workers, remote support from your vendors. Everybody is trying to get into your factory for good reasons. Yeah. Or it's the IoT, right? And the IoT is extracting data. Are they opening up the vulnerabilities in your system as well? It's something you need to avoid. So those two things you need to think about when you're thinking about vulnerability. These are the things that are probably causing the most in your company. There are more, but these are the ones that you should be focusing on. There's something you can do about it. And of course, CGI will help you address these. The second thing is your target. You are much more of a target than you realize. Some companies say, I'm not interesting enough to be targeted. Why would anybody be interested in me? Well, cyber criminals have an interest in almost everybody. And maybe you not as an individual or as a small business, but then you will be hit just by chance, just by the sheer numbers of cyber attacks that are being staged. So everybody will become a target at some point in time. And the point is that you need to start realizing this. When you realize it, then you can start doing something about it. Denying it and being an ostrich, just stick your head in the sand and it won't hit me, will get you nowhere. Will actually make you suffer the consequences. And that is where my third point is, that the consequences of a cyber attack are often much more significant than you think. When we think about what happens, what we read about in the daily news is about sensitive data that is being leaked in the public domain. Passwords, credentials, patient data, and that is all true. That happens. But there are so many more things that happen, that can happen to you. Okay, we'll get there. I had many more slides in my workshop, so I'm trying to remember what I all put in slides, but this is off the top of my head. So when you think about when you get hit, and the companies that have been hit by a significant cybersecurity incident know this, it is much more than just your data being in the public domain, because you need to spend time and money into doing forensics, understanding why did we even have an attack in the first place? Where was our vulnerability? That takes time. You would have lost data. You might have lost systems. You need to recover them, rebuild them. You need to maybe hire extra staff to help you do all those things. Who are you going to call when you get hit? Those companies do not come cheap. Yeah, and then there's penalties. Today, NIS2 is a topic that's being heavily discussed everywhere. They really talk about some really serious personal liability, but fines as well. 10% of your revenue, I forgot the number exactly, but it is significant. No, it's not 10% of your revenue. It's not that much. But anyway, it's a significant number. Insurance companies are playing a role in this as well. Insurance companies say, if you do not take care of your cybersecurity, even if you can get insurance, but the premiums will go up. So there's a lot of consequential financial penalties that you may experience after you've been hit as by a cybersecurity incident. What about staff? Staff that are unable to work, lost productivity, but staff that actually might quit because they experienced the traumatic experience of a cyber incident, and you need to re-recruit. Extra staff you may need to hire because you need extra staff to rebuild your systems. There's a lot of things, and these are all consequences that you can see in the IT domain. In the OT domain, this goes even further, because when you lose the ability to produce, you lose the ability to make money. Some companies may lose some 6 million euros per hour. How long can you be down? How long can you sustain your downtime before you go bankrupt? Right? If you are creating disaster recovery and business continuity scenarios, keep that in mind. What is the cost of an hour of productivity loss? Do I need to build restoration policies to be back up and running in a month, in a week, in a day? And that determines how much investment you need to keep apart to make sure that you actually recover before you're out of business and recovery is useless. Yeah? Fatalities. If something happens to your production, and some of these companies work in very dangerous environments, petrochemical, pharmaceutical, mostly in the process industry, it is a very dangerous process that is being used. In the assembly, much less so, but still, it could lead to fatalities. But even an IT attack that has consequences in your OT domain could lead to serious consequences. Yeah, so there's a lot of additional impact that you may not even have realized. Environmental spills, I can go on. And basically, and this goes to my next slide, there is always a business case. People say, or companies that say, I don't have the money this year, maybe next year. And I hear that a lot. So you need to just, stay the course and just keep talking to them, because at some point they will come. But it takes a lot of guts and effort to actually make a sale in OT cybersecurity. But the consequences of not investing in cybersecurity are so much bigger than the actual investment. You can always make a business case for it. Here are some of the numbers, and I think the bottom one is where I want to stress. If you are then at some point able to reach a higher level of cybersecurity, it allows you to also embrace new technology. And this entire fair is all about new technologies. If you realize how vulnerable you are and how much of a target you are, you may actually become scared of deploying these technologies in your operational and production processes. You don't need to be. You need to be smart about it. You need to make sure that you are in control of your data, you're in control of your risks, in control of your vulnerabilities, and take the measures to protect yourself. And then you can safely embrace all the new technologies that are on offer, and you can use them without creating more risk, and you can actually create a competitive advantage in your industry. So when you start thinking about this, I hope that the message did come across, and you say, yes, I am probably much more vulnerable than I thought I was, and the consequences probably justify a business case. Then what should I really focus on next? Yeah. Start with a proper risk assessment. What is most critical in your business, and where do you, what can you not afford to lose? Think about how you can recover that, and that's where you start. Imagine the worst possible scenario, because if you start thinking about that, and at least you start thinking about the right measures. You don't necessarily need to invest for the worst case scenario, because it may be unaffordable. But there's different levels of security measures that you want to take, and it needs to be commensurate with the risk that you're running. If something is at low risk, few measures. If something is high risk, a lot of measures, and it will be restrictive. But of course, you need to make your people aware that we're making the restrictions for a purpose. If we lose this system, ladies and gentlemen, then we will be out of business within a week if we don't recover. Think about that when the next time when you open a firewall port. And the last one, I think, is just a repetition from the last one, from the previous slide. If you want to continue on your digital transformation, make sure that you become cyber aware, cyber mature, and cyber resilient. My company is CGI. We've been doing cybersecurity for 45 years, OT cybersecurity for the past 20 years. This is not something we started yesterday because we thought it was a profitable business. We've been working on this for a long time. We work around the globe. We have 9 security operations centers, out of which 3 are already providing OT security monitoring services. And there are not that many that can offer both IT and OT monitoring services. The 4th one coming up in Netherlands, I hope, very soon. These are some of the partners that I've put on this slide, mostly on the OT cybersecurity side. Of course, we all use Microsoft as well, and ServiceNow for our OT service management, your CMDB solutions. That, I think, wraps it up for today for me. Thank you for your attention.
Following a presentation, I was wondering, how does CGI help a manufacturer to balance OT cybersecurity and implement a strategy without slowing down the agility or the production? How do you address this concern that your customer may have? How would I make sure if I implement more and more security, I will not become less and less agile? Because it's one of the concerns that I hear. Is there any way you address that?
It is a dilemma in a way, really. And the thing is, what will really slow you down if you just transpose your IT security policies onto OT. That will definitely stifle all cooperation. So you need to be smart. You need to select a partner that really understands what OT is all about, that it is a different world and a different language and a different system, different risks and different types of measures. If you are working with, let's say, shifts, and you have teams of operators working with the same password, in IT that would be completely unheard of. In OT, you have to make it possible because that's the way we work. That's on one side, so you have to do what you can, which is practicable for the organization. On the other hand, you also need to educate your people to say, we're not doing this to slow you down or to pester you or to harass you. We're doing this because you will not have a job tomorrow if we get hit. Right? So it goes both ways. And yes, there is some discomfort that you have to suffer, but it's for a good purpose.
And following on what you were saying, there's a huge cultural difference between IT and OT. Is there any way you guys are working to address this cultural difference? Is there any way of work, any methodology you guys are using to create only one security plan, but with 2 different cultures?
Well, that's an easy answer. Don't come in dressed like this. and I'm only dressed like this.
Metal cap shoes.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah. Jeans and, speak their language and dress in their dress. And all of our guys actually have the safety training, security training, and we can expense the hard
metal cap shoes are paid by CGI there. No problem.
Only if you work in my unit, of course. But
okay.
Yeah, but you can.
Perfect. And last question, William, is in small, medium-sized business, what are the major gaps that you see based on your experience? What are the things that remain that makes not much sense anymore? Is there any example of things that people should stop doing right away? Small, medium-sized businesses.
Well, one of the things that small and medium-sized businesses think that they don't stand up against their system vendors or their suppliers. Large companies, of course, have a lot of negotiating power, and they feel like they can actually be forceful and request certain behavior. The small ones feel that they may not be able. And then they get overruled, and that's when a system vendor comes in and say, I installed the system, but I also need unlimited access to monitor the system, to fix it whenever possible. And you may say, fine, that's great, because then I don't have to worry about it. At the same time, somebody is continuously accessing your network, and they may not have bad intentions, but unintentionally it could expose a gateway to a cyber criminal as well. So what you have to do, stand up. Every new vendor coming in, every new supplier coming in, make sure that it contains a security paragraph to say, this is what I require at a minimum from you.
Okay.
And then I don't want to do business with you.
If you don't comply with this minimum requirement there.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, and if we want to know these minimum requirements, we can go and see you, I guess, at the booth of CGI, of course, speak to William. One last question out of my mind, just like that. I really like your presentation, the energy you put into it. You seem to be a passionate guy about what you do. And now we're sitting next to the Canadian Fire right away in a Canadian shack, and maybe up north in your country, Netherlands, as well. And for all the energy you have in you to do your work with passion, what are the things you do to make sure you feed your logs internally to keep that energy growing and going back to your customer side? Is there anything special, a routine you like to do either personally or at work to keep this fire burning inside of you? Because I felt the energy when you were talking with all of these 1,000 people listening to us.
It's actually not easy, but it's not easy because successes are far apart. There's so much talking, so much evangelism that I need to do, but that comes out of passion. And then when you succeed and you're actually able to help, recently we worked with a customer where we installed an OT security monitoring tool, and we discovered crypto miners in there, really harmful malware in there. And you are able to remove it and well, first of all, demonstrate this. They say, we didn't do this for nothing. You didn't make your investment for nothing. It was really worthwhile. And if you do see that and you see the fruits of your labor, that makes it all worthwhile.
And I'm sure you have many, many of these cases, because the question is not if I will get attacked, is when will I be? So thank you very much, William, for your presentation, and I hope you have a great show.
Thank you so much.
Cet épisode de La Chaise Bleue vous a été présenté par GLM Conseil. Acolyte de la transformation dans votre entreprise à l'ère du numérique.